Hello and welcome to another video review. This is Sid Meier's Pirates for PC, Mac, Xbox, Xbox 360, PSP, iPad, and Wii. This review is coming to you courtesy of Goat Burglar. He sent me this, so thank you. It is greatly appreciated. This is sort of a remake of the original Sid Meier's Pirates from 1987, only I haven't played that game, so I don't really have a frame of reference to consider this a remake. Instead, I'm thinking of it as just a standalone game by itself with nothing supporting it. And, so, going into this thing, I read some reviews, and there was absolutely massive amount of acclaim for this thing. Pretty much everybody loves this thing to no end. And so I went into this thing trying to figure out why. The first thing I noticed was that it's a multi-genre game, and that, of course, makes it very unique. It's strategy, action, and adventure all packed into one, and so that makes it pretty hard to classify. That said, you have to ask yourself, how do these elements all play out in the game? Are they to its benefit or something else? Well, before we answer that question, let's go over the presentation. The graphics themselves were not very impressive for 2004. I mean, they were pretty average, but they have this very nice visual style to them that gives the game quite a bit of charm. It's kind of a cross between realistic and cartoony, very bright and colorful, and it just really fits the game quite well. Same kind of goes for the sound design. The voice acting, or what I should say, lack thereof, because it's really just people going stuff like that. So, it's stuff that you actually have heard in other Sid Meier games, like, say, Sim Golf, for instance. And there was even a laugh from Civilization 3 thrown in there, and I'm just catching these left and right. I'm like, okay, there's a lot of reuse here. But it's just this kind of nonsensical, goofy stuff that, again, gives the game quite a bit of charm. They also got the music pretty right. When you're going around doing piratey stuff, it's playing piratey music. When you're going into the ports, it plays music appropriate to those various factions, because there's the British, the Dutch, the Spanish, and the French throughout the Caribbean. And when you go into the various settlements, it'll play music appropriate to them. Like, for instance, if you go to a British port, it'll actually play the British Grenadiers, which I quite like that song. But anyway. So, the music actually lends to a great deal of the charm as well. So the presentation, while not particularly impressive, certainly leaves a lasting charm on you. But the real question is, how does this game play out? Well, in terms of story, it plays out very simply. The idea is that the evil Marquis de Montbaron has enslaved your family due to failing to pay a debt to him, and you manage to escape this fate. So when you get older, you go and seek your own fame and fortune in the Caribbean, as well as try to track this guy down and get your family back. And that's it. That's your entire storyline. You're trying to get revenge on the Marquis, you're trying to get your family back, and most importantly, you're trying to get fame and fortune. In fact, that's the only way you can win this game. There's really no winning it at all. It's just whatever your score is at the end is going on the leaderboard, and that's it. And the leaderboard is local, by the way. It's not like an online leaderboard or anything. Anyway, the idea is that you're going to retire from pirating life and be just filthy rich and with tons of fame and many titles and such like that. That's it. That's your main story. When you're actually going and trying to find your family members and the Marquis, you're doing the exact same thing for both. You're tracking this guy down. In the case of the family members, it's the evil Baron Raimondo, who will give you a piece of a map in order to find this family member. You need 4 pieces of a map in order to find a family member, and the problem is you need all 4 pieces even if you know where they are from 1, 2, or even 3 pieces of the map. You need all 4 pieces. Otherwise, it just won't trigger for some reason. It's pretty annoying. Same thing goes for the Marquis. You're actually tracking down the Marquis himself and defeating him in order to get map pieces to his hideout. You only need 4 pieces of this, but you need all 4 pieces of it for it to actually trigger. It's pretty annoying. And so these quests, you're just going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth across the Caribbean. Takes forever, really annoying. Anyway, the rest of the game is spent doing various other things. And it starts you off by saying, here's your character, choose a skill, choose your difficulty setting, and choose your time period that you're going to be sailing out. Time period doesn't really make a huge amount of difference. It's just going to control different controls of harbors and such like that. Just whoever owns them. Skill does actually have a factor in this game. Like, for instance, fencing pretty much negates the problem of getting older and losing your dueling prowess. And, of course, you've got other skills that you can choose if you don't want to just go with fencing. That's what I went with, but anyway. And you can choose your difficulty setting, which does actually influence the game. Namely, it makes things faster when it comes to actually doing duels and such, and it makes them harder. And that's kind of it, actually. The rest of the game, it starts you off with a choice. You like, okay, do you want to be English, Dutch, Spanish, or French? It doesn't matter which one you choose, really. It's just going to do the exact same thing every time. And that is that your crew is going to mutiny and choose you as their captain. And so you now have a ship, you now have a crew. Go around to the Caribbean and do piratey things. You'll probably start off by going into a settlement and getting a letter of marque from a governor, which will say, okay, well, you can now get bonuses from defeating our enemies and such like that, and doing various missions for us. Most of the missions involve escorting a ship from one port to another, and that's kind of it, actually. The other thing is to just defeat enemy ships, and that's it. So as you do this, you'll gain points with those various factions. They're the English, the French, the Spanish, and the Dutch. And you will increase in rank. And you can increase in rank in all 4 of them at the same time. It doesn't really matter what status it is in each of them. As long as you're doing things for that faction, they don't care. In fact, they don't care at all whether you're doing things for that faction or not, really. In fact, I was going and taking Spanish warships, for instance, and they were sitting there like, yeah, you shouldn't do that. Here's a slap on the wrist. Now, go do stuff. And they didn't care at all. Anyway, it's kind of pathetic the way the factions play out. They don't really do much difference. It's just whoever wants to give you stuff, they can give you stuff. And that's kind of it. There are also pirates sailing the seas. And there are, I believe, 9 pirates in total that are just the legendary pirates. And you can defeat them if you want and get massive amounts of fame, get their treasure and such like that. You can also track down their treasures, which are all hidden, via treasure maps, which you'll find in taverns that you'll have to pay people for them. And you can track them down. It's usually pretty easy, actually. Luckily, you don't need all 4 pieces of the map in order to actually find the treasure. In fact, it's pretty easy to find them with 1. And so you'll be able to track down the treasures pretty easily. In fact, I did that in the first hour. All 9 of the pirate treasures I found in the first hour. That should tell you something about this game. Anyway, when you go into town, you will be able to buy and sell goods and supplies, like cannons, which are just named guns in this thing, as well as food, which you need. I just stocked up on tons of guns and food, and that was it. That's all I needed. In fact, I didn't even really need the guns, to be honest with you, because I'll get to that when I get to the ship battles. But the rest of the stuff is like luxuries and spices that you can sell and get tons of money for, and that's kind of it. You can also go to a shipwright and upgrade your ship, repair it, that sort of thing. You can also sell extra ships that you've got, so that's pretty handy. And eventually, you might have to divide your plunder. This is all done in a settlement, by the way. When you divide your plunder, it gives you a certain portion of it, and I can't remember the exact percentages and such like that, but it gives you a certain portion of the money you've got, and it lets you keep your ship. And it just progresses a few months, and it's like, okay, well, whatever. You can also retire from pirate life at that point, but you're probably not going to do that very early on. In addition, you're going to be sailing from port to port for about 90% of the game. That's it. Just moving from one place to another. Usually because it takes forever to get to places, unless the wind's going your direction. Guess what? Wind only goes one direction in this game. Yeah. It's pretty annoying. So you'll go really fast in one direction and really slow in the other. Now keep in mind, when you're tracking down the Marquis and the Baron and such like that, they're usually popping up on the complete other side of the Caribbean. So you're going to be going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, over and over and over again. It's going to take you forever. And it's just boring. Sometimes you'll get into a ship battle. And this actually spices things up a slight bit. You can shoot at your enemy with grape shot, chain shot, or round shot. Chain shot doing more damage to the ship, grape shot doing damage to the crew, and round shot doing both. Just not as good as either one of them. And it's good luck hitting them. It's that simple. good luck hitting them because there's no real indicator of where you're going to actually be firing. You just kind of have to wing it, and you'll probably miss most of the time. So really it's more economical just to crash the ships together and engage a sword duel. And this is done with the enemy captain. And it's really just a quick time event where you use the numpad in order to do proper moves at the proper times. Like, for instance, if they go for a thrust, you're supposed to parry it, which is the 5 key. And once you do that, you can follow it up with an attack of your own. You can also taunt. I never really noticed that doing anything, but you can do it. And the minigame is actually very, very simple. It's a little more than a quick time event. And I almost never lost a single sword duel in this entire game, except when I upped the difficulty. And suddenly, the difficulty setting I was used to, it just skyrocketed. And I'm like, wait, whoa, it's suddenly fast. But it didn't take much to get used to that, so that's something to keep in mind. Dueling in this game, very, very easy, very, very quick. Ship battles don't last long. It's that simple. Also, when you get into a port, you can go and talk to the governor's daughter, and you can dance with her. And this is one of the romance things, and it's stupid. The dancing minigame is actually infuriating. It's also a quick time event, but it's much, much faster than the sword dueling, and much less, well, useful. Because all it really does is give you fame points. And sometimes you'll get a little bit of goodies. Like, it'll give you a choice between different items that you can actually get and enhance your own stats and such. Like dueling shirts or pistols that you can use in combat. I've never noticed those actually doing anything, to be honest with you. But you can get them. And it's kind of annoying, actually. But anyway, the dancing minigame itself is just infuriatingly difficult because it gets faster and faster the more attractive woman you're trying to actually romance in this game. And it's kind of funny, too, because you can basically have a lover in every port. Pretty amusing, to be honest with you, but anyway. I should have renamed my character Blasto the Hanar Spectre. Anyway, the dancing minigame, just completely infuriating, and it's just tapping the right button at the right time, and usually it goes very quickly and gets more and more complicated as things go along. Just, really irritating. There are also land battles, which are done in a grid format, and it's actually kind of a strategy game. Actually pretty simplistic, and the game doesn't really let you do them very much. Which is kind of a pity, because that's one of the few interesting things about the game. Now, keep this in mind. It's a multi-genre game, and I understand that things are going to suffer between having these multiple genres, but it's not good at any of them. I mean, it's not a management game, obviously. You're not really doing much buying or selling. You're not really managing your crew very much. Occasionally, they'll try to mutiny, but that's only if you let them go unhappy for long enough, and that doesn't really happen very much, if at all. In fact, I never actually managed to get it to happen to me. You have to actually play really badly for it to happen. It's very easy to get better ships, and get fully upgraded ships for that matter. It's very easy to find the pirate treasures. It's very easy to defeat the pirates. Very easy to defeat every ship captain in this entire game. It's very easy to defeat the Marquis and the Baron. The only challenging thing in the entire game is the dancing minigame. And it's stupid. So, there's really nothing fun about this game. And that's the problem. It's just, I don't understand how people enjoy it. I mean, yes, you're given the freedom to roam the seas and be a pirate, but it never really makes you feel like you're really empowered or anything. It makes you just get bored. It's very tedious. You're doing the exact same thing over and over and over again. And the only reason you're doing them is to get more fame and fortune, and that's it. There's not a lot to it. And a lot of the items you get will end up being useless because you'll never encounter a situation where they're necessary. So, what's the point? I mean, yes, you can get other goodies like specialists for your fleet, but it's just, there's not enough in this game that's really good, meaty content. And the problem I have with this is that I haven't seen anybody actually criticize this game before. That nobody's ever called it out for what it is, which is just extreme amounts of tedium, the extreme amounts of repetition, and way too easy. It's just not fun. That's why I give it a 1.5 out of 5. Thanks for watching.